Tamar Beckel, and I'm with Golden Calf Company. We have, for the last 12 years, been helping dairy producers do a better job and a faster job feeding calves colostrum. So whether that is a colostrum pasteurizer, colostrum warmer, or the colostrum feeding tools that you use on the dairy to do a better job feeding the calf in a faster and a more hygienic way. We do have a booth here, so you can definitely stop by and take a look at what we have to offer. We are going to mention some of our products today as we go through the presentation about lean, because that is something that our company really focuses on internally as well as externally. So what we're gonna do today, come on in, good morning. So what we're gonna do today, we're changing the format from yesterday a little bit. I am gonna go through the presentation on what lean actually is, what it means for us on the dairies, and then our wonderful panel is going to talk about what they do on their own dairies and how that works for them. And that is really the forum for you guys to ask a lot of questions about the dairies. We have Elena with Twin Spruce, and we have Eric with Dykstra. Thank you. And we have Amy Beckel, who is with Golden Calf Company. And today we're going to talk about lean maternity, how to optimize your work to become more profitable. So what does that mean for us? And can I have another clip? In the regular original economic theory, the way profits work is that you have the cost of your production, you add your profit margin to it, and that equals your price. So we're able to build that from the ground up. I'm guessing if you guys could do that, you probably wouldn't even be here today, right? If we could just add on the profit margin that we need and tell our dairy processors how much they should be paying us, that would be a beautiful world. Unfortunately, that is not the world we live in. Our situation is quite the opposite. Our profit is what we get from the processor minus our costs. And that's a really important distinction, because here I can decide what I'm going to get paid. Whereas here I get to do an awfully good job keeping my costs low in order to be profitable. The primary reason for high costs is our waste. So eliminating waste is the primary means of maximizing our profits. And the way we look at the lean on a farm, and I'm just going to read this, is a farm-wide approach to identifying and eliminating waste, also called non-value-added activities, through continuous improvement, meaning we're constantly trying to get better. In the pursuit of perfection, if we don't have any waste, there's nothing else to eliminate, we have achieved perfection, right? By flowing the care at the needs of the animal. This is a really important line. What that means is that we don't do anything unless the animal actually demands it. Once again, asking for the elimination of activities that are not important or directly related to the care that we provide to the animal, with the involvement of everyone. So I can't do this in a vacuum. I have to have my coworkers, my bosses, my subordinates, everybody be involved and understand what it is that we're trying to do and why we're doing it. So why are we here? We want to know, and most of you are probably here today because you want to hear these guys talk, and you want to know, where were you guys? What were you doing a year ago? How did you change it? What were the results? And what do you need to improve now? We are naturally curious. That's what we want to know. That's why we come to producer panels, because we want to know how other people did it. But in the real world, what we really need to be doing is do that with our own farm, do that with ourselves. So asking those same questions of where are we today? How can we analyze the processing that we're doing? And we're gonna give you some ideas for what to look for. And then deciding that here's a change I'm gonna make. So that's gonna be my experiment of changing a process or a protocol. Then I'm gonna evaluate it to find out if it worked, right? Did that work out for you? And then choosing the new direction. Either yes, this is what we wanna be doing, that worked, or picking out something new that we want to be changing from now on. In the fancy world of manufacturing, this is called this is named continuous improvement. So we're constantly trying to improve our own selves. And the way you can do it is looking for areas of what you want to be improving, but also by measuring the results that you have. So we talked about lean as being a way of reducing waste. There are different types of waste. There's a waste of time, over-processing, doing something with so much effort that is not actually necessary for the task you're doing. The waste of motion, and the waste of transportation. So if you think about a dairy, do you have all the tools that you need for a task in one location? Or are you constantly walking somewhere else, try to get places because you need this tool from over here and that tool from over there? So what is wasting time? Wasting time is waiting. You might be waiting on somebody to make a decision, right? That is wasting time. That means that you can be doing the task you need to. And that can be taken care of by having really good protocols. You have the calves waiting on something. Are they waiting on you to find the tool that you need to help them out? Are they waiting on somebody to notice that they were born? That's a really big deal, right? And then searching. Searching is the most frustrating form of waiting. When you just can't find the tool you need and you knew you put it down here, but somebody else moved it. So when we talk about wasting time, one of the industry proven forms of finding out where on your dairy you're wasting time is to do what's called a value-added flow. In our case, this would be a calf care flow. So we start with the activities and the events that are important for the calf care. So in our maternity, and remember we said that our actions happen at the pull of the calf, right? At the demand of the animal. So we start with the calf is born. That is our number one priority. We know we gotta run down there. We cut the umbilical cord, we dry off the calf, and then our next step is the colostrum feeding. After the colostrum feeding, we make sure that we give the ear tags and the calf's vaccines, and this whole process ends with a calf being moved into the clean, dry pen. Now this might look a little bit different on your dairy, but I'm thinking we're pretty close, right? So let's put a time on it. So you mark off your steps that are important for the calf. And then let's say when the calf is born and maybe we have to pull it, maybe we're taking care of the cord, drying it off, finding it out. We have 10 minutes of time spent there. We have 5 minutes spending on colostrum feeding because you're using our system and it's super awesome. We have 10 minutes on the calf vaccines, and we have 5 minutes to move the calf to a clean, dry pen. One more click, we're at 30 minutes. So if everything works out perfectly on your dairy, you're at 30 minutes. Now, does it always work out perfectly? Not really, right? So what happens? We get this massive chunk of time in here. I think you can do one more quick, thank you, Andy. Where between the time the calf is born and the time you're feeding the colostrum, you have a whole bunch of things that need to happen. You have to get the colostrum warmed up. Maybe you need to wash the tube feeder because the guy before you didn't wash it, or maybe your protocols say to wash it before you feed the calf, because that way we ensure that it's safe and hygienic. You have to move the colostrum to a tube feeder, and maybe you even have to milk the cows. So there's a whole chunk of an hour that is wasted time because it is not directly taking care of the calf. Let's take a look further. So between the colostrum feeding and the calf vaccines, maybe you gotta go to a freezer that's on the other side, or your cooler for your vaccines that's way on the other side when you're actually performing these activities. Maybe you gotta look up what ear tag they need to get because it's a different animal. Maybe you need to ask somebody what to do. And that adds another 20 minutes in here. And before you are able to move the calf to the clean pen, you need to prepare the pen. You need to find the cart. Now, is the cart always at the ready where you need it? And so, if we add up all these numbers, all of a sudden we're not at a half an hour, we're at 2 hours of taking care of one calf. So normally, if you knew that it takes you 2 hours just to get through that, it'd be like, well, I need to do something else differently, right? But the problem is that we're not always consistent. And so sometimes we're at half an hour and sometimes we're at 2 hours and we're like, oh, the average is all right. But the concept of the lean is that you really spend time thinking about it and figuring out ways and tools of how to do a better job narrowing this. Because so often we focus, oh, can we do a better job right here because we're taking care of the cat? Well, if I slice off 2 minutes off of this process, is that really going to help me in the big picture? If I'm at 128 minutes instead of 130, the return on the investment isn't really there, right? So it is these yellow areas that you need to go home and take a look at. Our second waste is over-processing. So sometimes we have a really cool idea of how to do something better, and we end up causing more damage to ourselves. So this is a great example of an innovative idea for somebody to cool down colostrum with frozen bottles of water that used to be Gatorade. Now, perhaps we're focused on the cooling down process, which the goal of the cooling down process is to reduce bacteria, right? But if we take a bunch of bottles and we just throw them into the colostrum, what did we just do to the bacterial load? We're not really helping ourselves, and it's taking more time, and it's taking a person to actually go and do the work. Wasted motion. These two are actually examples of a really good solution to addressing wasted motion. So we have a calf. You can see right here in the cart, there is a big slot for water to drain. There are a couple more slots up here and a couple more slots down here that are allowing the water to drain. So once I manage to put a calf in the cart, what else can I do? I can rinse the calf off, I can dry it off, we know that the water is gonna run out, and now I have a calf that I already moved into a cart, I already washed it, and now I can transport it happily, and I know it's not gonna get dirty again. So just really trying to think of ways how we can do more things at once, how can we do them more ergonomically, because now the calf is higher, so I don't have to bend down so much, right? The exact same thing is happening on this particular picture. The colostrum is on the calf feeder's back, and he's got a hose that leads to a tube feeder so that he can bend over the calf. The colostrum is on its back, and he's able to feed the calf. Now, if you're a calf feeder that has to feed 40 calves a day, your arms with a bottle are gonna get really, really tired, right? And we know that if people get tired, they get grumpy, and if you're grumpy, you're gonna take it out on the calf. So then we really improve our calf care. So that more ergonomic we can make things, the happier we can make the people that are working in the maternity area, the better care we're able to provide to the animals. Here's our transportation. I kind of mentioned it earlier too. If your vaccines are so far away from the point where you actually need them, you have a whole lot of travel that is wasted time, it's wasted effort, it's more steps than people need to take in a day. Here we have two examples of our customers transporting the cartridges that are filled with colostrum. So they're heavy. I mean, we're talking about 4 liters of colostrum. You got 8 pounds, right? So 8 pounds each. that would be a lot of walking if I had to carry it around. If I can put it on a cart, and this one has even a cart that's sized to the size of the cartridges, so it's really easy to move it along. This one also, labor savings, you know, I don't have to carry them. I have a cart to move it. Maybe not as well organized, but definitely a good way to take some of the weight off of the employees. So what are the tools that we have? Can you put one more? And one more. Thank you. So we have tools that are visual. Number one thing, if we can make things really obvious so that you can notice them as you walk through, whether you're the employee, you can go, hey, I'm missing a tool. Where did it go? As opposed to, think of having a cluttered desk, right? If you're looking for a pen and the desk is cluttered, you can't find it, it's gonna be difficult. You'll never know that it's missing. If you have a desk where everything is super organized, you'll be like, my scissors are missing. Prepared space, same thing, standardization, and measuring your results. So let's see some of these examples. Here is a visual, how many here can read this? That's what I was hoping. So this is a poster from the Czech Republic about how to take care of calves, or your care of just calf and cow care. So you can see this cow is having a lot of fun taking her shower, right? Keeping things clean. In the top left, we have the birth and the newborn calf, and how we're supposed to make sure the descriptions in the words are very much what is standard for us, right? Make sure you dry the calf off. You can see him there with the hair dryer. So bringing a little bit more fun, a little bit more visual. It's all about treating the calves nicely. You can see him up here pretending that the calf is a little baby. But really what it does is conveying the idea that these calves are babies and we need to take care of them as such. And sometimes making things fun pays, goes a long way. Okay, so here's an example of what's called a shadow board and the difference, what it can do for you. So we have two tube feeders, we have them nicely on hangers, hanging on a wall, making sure the space is organized. But if I take one off, I'll never know what is actually missing. So if you take nothing away today except for this one idea, that alone will make a big difference. So get a marker, make sure that every one of your tools has a spot for it, and just go around and draw the outline. Because, one more? Because what happens is if I have a wall where nothing's hanging on it, and I don't have any outlines, what was supposed to be there? Was it a hose? Was it a brush? Was it a cleaner? You know, where did that tool go? Did we get rid of it? Did we not need it? Whereas if you draw your outlines, then whether you're a manager or an employee, within 1 second when you walk into that room, you know that those tools are missing. So somebody might not be doing their job. Where are they? What happened to them? Did they get broken? Do we need to replace them? It's a very quick visual to be able to tell what we need to do. So here we have two different workspaces. One is very much prepared and ready to go. It's clean, it's single-use tube feeders that you just grab one, use it, and you throw them away. And you can see that they're in a clear plastic tub that has a lid on it so that you can't get a dirt in there, and compared to this other space. So this is a refractometer for measuring the quality of colostrum. You can tell it's just laying on a bench somewhere, so it doesn't have a spot where it always returns to. So if I'm new on the job, I might spend quite some time actually looking for it. And the colostrum was left from the previous testing. So now I'm creating a buildup. So the next thing I'm measuring is not going to be measured properly. and now I have to spend time cleaning it if I want to use it properly. So it's now all kinds of wasted time. So here is standardization, and if you want to, you can join me, but you all got notepads. You can draw yourself a pig on that notepad. Or you can just imagine a pig. So, because here's the thing, we ask our employees, we ask our children to do things, right? If I ask my kids to go and clean their bedroom, it is a very much not a specific instruction, right? That it can mean to put the sock away, or it can mean, and I never get the results I want, right? I ask them to clean their bedroom, and half an hour later I walk in there and they're reading a magazine or looking up something because, oh, I was cleaning the cupboard and this is what I came across and I haven't seen this in a long time. Or they're playing with a toy they haven't seen in a while because the instruction is not specific. So if you were able to draw your pig probably looks something like this. It might have a head and a body, and it probably has got the curly tail, and if you're lucky it's got 4 legs. Right? Now if I tell you to divide your piece of paper into 9 squares, so you draw 2 lines down, 2 lines across, and I tell you to draw the head in the first square, and I tell you to draw the back in the second square, and then I tell you to draw the curly tail in the third square, and now in the first and the third on the bottom, you draw your 2 legs, and then you fill in the belly in the middle square on the bottom, and then you finish the front and the back. We're going to end up with a pig that is a lot more standardized. So do you see the difference? If I walk my employees through a protocol that is standardized, I can now say, oh, wait, all of you have the piggy tail in that second window down. I really want you to move it to the first one. And then if they all move that piggy tail to that first one, it is still gonna look the same. It is still the same protocol because we are starting from the same point. And that is why we write protocols. That is why protocols need to be visual and they need to be really easy to understand. Now I gave you instructions verbally. If I just showed you a picture of that pig, would that make things a lot simpler? That is the value of visual. Now if I try to get these guys to get on the same page, I'm gonna have to tell this person to add the eyes, this person to maybe make the head smaller, and that person to turn the pig sideways. So when these 3 people meet in a meeting and they say, well, what did Dagmar tell you you're supposed to do differently? This guy's gonna say, turn the pig. This guy's gonna say, turn the head, make the head smaller, and this guy's gonna say, at the eyes. We have a whole new set of protocols all of a sudden because they each just took the little bit that they needed. Whereas if we start on the same level, we're able to move together into the future. And that brings us to the last picture, which is writing down your results. So if I can measure where I'm at today, I can get better. This is an example of Andy, do you want to talk about that? I think this is a great time actually for us to switch. Awesome.
So this is a 38-month continuous graph chart. They chart everything at the U.S. Dairy Forage Research Center for their calves, and this is just kind of showing your trending, right? So they're using this is specific to scour rates on calves up to about 1 month of age. So they're tracking all this data, and here they're kind of acting like a typical dairy, we would say. Like they've got ups, they've got downs, peaks, valleys. We all kind of deal with scours, different times, different reasons. And they're very, in a way, not following a good standardized way because they're using a tool or tools and a processes that's not easily replicatable and doesn't ensure really anything other than we do the act of doing it, right? Which may be just simply wasteful act. And they are using, in this example, all this time frame for 36 months of the 38 months on this graph chart. They are using a reusable tube feeder. So they are washing, sanitizing, and reusing this tool. And they're trying to do the very best, and they're writing good protocols to try and ensure that everything goes right, but they've complicated it by adding a lot of wasteful steps. And in the end, they switch over in this area right here. This is where it changes, right? So they changed from using a reusable tube feeder that had all these wasteful steps and holes and protocols that could change or isn't exactly followed. Can you not hear me? Quieter? All right, so we'll wait for that. Okay, so they're not standardizing really anything other than the fact that they're trying to do a procedure they've done before, and they get to this point here, and they make a change, and they standardize it, and they switch from a typical reusable tool like this for esophageal tube feeding, and they end up going to something like this, which is a single-use disposable. So they cut out a lot of steps. They no longer wash. They no longer spend time using chemicals and cost. They no longer have water going down the drain. And all these things start to add up. And the whole processes of standardizing and being lean and getting rid of waste where it can be eliminated and focusing on those areas, they'll end up lending themselves to other results that are quite positive. So now they cut out all the waste, and they are buying, they're paying for this in one way. I always tell people, you pay for hygiene one way or another. It doesn't matter. You think you're not paying for it, but you are paying for it over here. So you're either hiring people for maternity, which is a really good example here, where this is lean maternity, but this can be applicable anywhere in the dairy and can be done in any industry. And ultimately, they're paying people from this whole previous timeline, they're paying them to wash, maintain, and repeat. But they didn't get hired for that reason. They're not a dishwasher. That's not their title. That wasn't what they applied for. But you are paying for that. When they changed that, and they went to something that was simple and disposable, they offset all that wasted time, and they are able to be more productive. And on top of it, you can see how this graph chart proves that now their hygiene went up. And why did their hygiene go up? Standardization. They no longer have to wonder who cleaned it, how well they cleaned, and they're not doing that repeat in that slide that you saw earlier, right? Because they don't have to focus on that point anymore. So they're not having to, in this instance, they don't have to, right now they don't have to focus on it. There's all kinds of fires every day, every week to put out. So they had a current status, they experimented with it, they evaluated it, you go, hey look, so you saw the chart before, tremendous drop off. For the last 2 months, 0% scours, 0% incident, 0% treatment. And that lends itself to a financial benefit to the organization in many, many ways. Financially, the calf is doing better. The calf is probably got a higher rate of gains. The calf isn't having to be cared for all that much, right? We all know that. A healthy animal, we spend very little time managing. It's the ill, the sick ones, the morbid ones, those are where we spend most of our time and most of our money and our resources. And on top of it, we're no longer paying them to be dishwashers. And we don't have to worry about how much water goes in the lagoon. But we did pay for it on the tube feeder because we're throwing that away every time. But it ensures all these things happen right and we standardize it. It keeps it simple. So now we're going to ask our panelists to talk about what they do and what changes they made in their maternity and kind of walk us through how they did this cycle here for lean. So Eric?
I get to go first.
You get to go first this time.
Okay, so my name's Eric, and I work at Extra Dairy down by Lamar's. And we milk about 3,000 cows, so we have 10 to 12 calves born on a daily basis in our maternity pen. And so, yeah, we're always looking to do a better job. We do raise our own calves as well, so we have them from birth till they calve in as well. So we're always looking to improve how we can improve our calves and our calf raising And so a couple changes that we've made in the last few years, working with Andy and working with some of the equipment he sells, is we weren't using this exact feeder. We were using kind of a homemade modified one. It was one that we had to clean, and we had a big chart on the wall how to clean it. You had to rinse it, and you had to use soap, and you had to use acid, and you had to use a sanitizer to keep this tube feeder clean. And it took a lot of time, took a lot of money. And so then when Andy came out with the disposable feeder, when I seen him at the show, I think it was last year when he was just introducing that, I was like, as soon as you have those ready, send me a case, because this is just going to be way smoother way to operate and to feed the calves. Another improvement that we made in the last couple of years as well was we used to only have the one unit. We had the Hero 12 unit. We were using that to pasteurize and also to thaw the colostrum. And so you couldn't do both at the same time. So if you had a calf born while you were pasteurizing, you had to wait till it was done and then do a thaw. So we added a second two cartridge unit to thaw with, so we could always thaw whenever we needed to. Made it a much smoother process and a lot easier for the employees to keep everything going more smooth. The calf was born, they immediately put one in the thaw unit. And so you always knew within 30 minutes of the calf being born that you could get colostrum into that calf right away. So I think that's a couple things we've done to improve in our maternity pen.
What would you now that you think about this, reevaluate? Is there anything you would like to change now moving forward that in the maternity area that you think could cut out waste and make it more standardized in other areas?
You didn't give me this question ahead of time.
Well, maybe we can have Elena.
Yeah, I think we should come back to that.
So my name's Elena. I work at Twin Springs Farms, Richmond, Minnesota. So my story is kind of the same as Eric's. We started out with the max 4, which is you can only pasteurize or thaw 4 at the same time. So if you were pasteurizing, you can only do 4. If you had more than 4 bags of milk, it was sitting on the shelf waiting. So if you had a calf born at that same time, you had to thaw it. And where would you thaw it? In hot water, either in a sink or in a pail. You couldn't put it in the pasteurizer because that was pasteurizing the milk. So we recently, within the last year, went to the Hero 12. We can do 12 cartridges at a time. So we pasteurize in the 12, and then in the 4, we mostly heat up our milk. So we can do 4 cartridges, heat it up. We do that. And also we went to the disposable tube feeders also. Before we were using the reusable, we were using the plastic ones. And so we were cleaning it, reusing it, and sometimes, some other calves, if you used it on a sick calf, you cleaned it, but you still aren't cleaning it good enough because the other calf is going to get sick. So we cut that out, and now we went to the disposable calf feeders.
So have you thought about that question now that is Eric? So
Repeat.
the repeat. So it's we experimented with it, we evaluated, and do we need to take any new direction with anything that you're doing in the maternity? So are there other areas in the maternity that you can identify now, thinking about it, okay, here's another area that we could improve on that I'd like to think about implementing or finding a solution?
So with us, we have 4 warming boxes. So we have 4 pens where our calves are. We have 3 calving pens in the front of those pens. So once a calf is born, the calf goes into the warming box. And I think, finding an ear tagger. I've had, by each warming box, I had 2 different ear taggers. Well, now some of them broke, we can't find them. I think having the ear takers by each, calving warming box, instead of walking around trying to find them, oh, here it is. I can take that calf really fast. So.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Eric? Did we give you enough time?
No.
Eric has perfected so well.
No, but yeah, just, that's one thing that we do keep in our maternity area is we try to keep everything that we need right there. There's no wasted excess stuff. I guess I shouldn't say there's never, but seems like once or twice a year you got to go in there and we don't use this anymore, get rid of this. We try to keep, if we're not using something, it's not in our maternity in our maternity room or vet room, or our maternity area and our vet area is kind of the same area, but yeah, we just try to keep what we need in there, so there's not excess junk. You're not looking for something that's hidden behind stuff you don't use. And so yeah, we try to keep everything well organized and everything in its place.
So let's open it up to questions. Who here would have any questions you'd like to ask the panelists? Nobody has any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Nobody else is gonna. Talk to us about the standardization and how you do your protocols, how you do your trainings, how do you make sure everybody's on the same page?
We have all of our maternity protocols is written down in a step-by-step, you know, what you do first, what you do next, and what you do last. And then we're training new people. We have one maternity current employee, you know, we'll train the new employees. We also have a video that we incorporate that goes through the basics of calf pulling that all new maternity employees watch. But yeah, I like to have everything is written down, from how to put an ear tag in, where to put it in the ear. Have you ever had an employee put an ear tag in the top of the ear instead of the back of the ear? So we have a little diagram of where in the ear to put the ear tag, and so we try to keep everybody does everything the same that way.
So what we do is we have all the protocols written down in a book, and I also have pictures on the wall in English and Spanish, because I do have Hispanic people working for me. Also, when we train new employees in, say we need somebody for the night shift. So the night shift guy, the new one, will train during the day shift, and the most veteran employee will be training that person in. So when that person is ready, he will then go to the night shift and work on the night shift.
Other questions? Yes, please.
I know on that chart, you said when the disposable tube feeder,
Yes.
that the scholars were quite a mess. Have they both experienced that on their farms? Where was the chart, or was the data came from the chart, their farms?
No, the data was, this specific chart was from the U.S. Dairy Forage Research Center in Wisconsin.
So have they seen similar results?
Have you guys?
I haven't so much because I just started using the disposable ones within the last maybe month, and my calves only stay only a week on my farm. So every week we get new calves.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't bring any data along or didn't get share it with Andy, but we have seen a decrease in scours, especially in the first week of age. Our calves are on auto feeders, so they're in a group setting. But yeah, we did see a decrease in that first week of age of scouring. So like I said, we're always trying to make sure the tube feeder was clean before, and yeah, it's just never this way. And it's also one thing that you can just you just check off on the box. It's like, well, we don't have to worry about the tube feeder is clean. Because before, you know, that we had an ATP meter, or our pregnant calf specialist would come like once a month, and they'd go around with the ATP meter and checking on things. And this way you're like, well, we don't have to worry about checking the tube feeder because it's a new one every calf.
You know, and I think that's one thing that sometimes we forget where our costs lie, right? So we think, oh, if I spend, it's like the 3-year taggers, right? So if I have to spend a little extra money to buy 2 more ear taggers, well, we already have one, right? Why do we need that? But if those 3 are attached to those 3 pens and they never go missing, then they just paid off for the one person that went and searched for half an hour to find the 1 ear tagger, right? So it's a little counterintuitive, but when we start focusing on what are the people actually doing, what is it that we hire them for? When you hire your calf feeders, do you ask them how well their washing skills are? No, we ask them if they can handle calves, right? That's what we want them to do. We don't want them to spend a half a day cleaning. And just like Eric said, so many of us will spend time going, okay, I'm gonna train you how to wash. Then I'm gonna come by and swab, and if those swabs are not good, then I'm gonna come and retrain you. Well, that's not just their time, it's also my time, and it's the person swabbing, right? So if we can get rid of that, we got other things to worry about. We can take care of the calves better.
Yeah, and to that point, I want to just point out, so it was a good question to ask about this chart, but the chart isn't to prove or disprove whether or not disposal of tube feeders is the way that you should do things. The point should be, and the takeaway should be, that there were so many positive results by standardizing the process and getting rid of like what Eric is doing, and I know many others are doing, which is great that you're testing and you're reevaluating, but that's all wasted time. There's no value added to what your end result is. So from a perspective of, actually I'll use us as an example. So as a manufacturer, as we're manufacturing all these products in our factory in Wisconsin, so we produce the bags in-house, we produce the tube feeders in-house, we produce all the stainless steel equipment in-house. And I ask as a leader of the organization, I ask that every morning we come in, we all spend 15 to 30 minutes cleaning. And the act of cleaning in and of itself is no value added. There's no way for me to monetize on that. I'm paying everybody to clean. We all participate. We bought a bunch of little Ghostbuster vacuum cleaners from Milwaukee. They're cordless, we can walk around, we can all vacuum. But in the act of doing this, while it's all wasted time, because that is really how it has to be evaluated, I'm getting other benefits in this moment, which is that they're identifying, are things organized? Are they in the right place? Are things missing as I walk by and I vacuum? Did like a Kanban card fall off of a spot for a parts bin? That needs to be picked up and put back into place. Are there screws on the floor? That could be a safety hazard. These things lend themselves, but the act of cleaning itself is not value added. So all this washing and maintaining and ATP meter swabbing, all that time is wasteful time. There's no value added. You can't pass it on when you sell the animal. You can't ask somebody to say, hey, look, I did all the ATP. You know, Eric, when you're selling animals at cold cows, and you're going, hey, by the way, trucker, when you send them down there, make sure they all know that I swabbed all this stuff and I did all this work and I irritate. Irritate is a great example, right? We all irritate. But when we sell milk every day, are we getting paid for that? No. And I'm not saying, and I'm standing here saying that we shouldn't irritate. I'm just saying evaluate what you're doing each step of the way and identify where that waste lies and find a way to get rid of it.
Other questions?
Other questions?
Go ahead.
I'm curious, each of you, what do you use for performance metrics to determine whether or not you've been successful with your procedures? IgG testing on a regular basis? What do you use?
Yeah, for the maternity area, probably the two biggest things is every week, one day a week, we do IgG tests on 10 or 12 calves that were born in the last 4 or 5 days. So when our veterinarian is there on vet check day, we pull a calf. So every week we know where our IgGs are doing. And then the other thing that's really important in our maternity area is our DOA rate, our dead on arrival. So every month we track that by employee. We know which employee had which dead calf, and then we track that and put it on the wall so they can. We have 3 maternity guys at a time. So the 3 guys are always, I won't say competing against each other, but you can tell if one guy's not doing as well or something. So that's the 2 big metrics we use is the IgGs and the DOAs. We have also, we don't always do this, but we have gone back and tracked like your scours or your pneumonias in the calves, track that back to the maternity guy, but we don't feel that that's necessarily a fair comparison. But yeah, the IgGs we track by employee and the DOAs.
I also do the IgGs. I do it on every heifer calf though. I pull that every week because they're shipped every Thursday. They're shipped out to Wisconsin. So on the paper, I send a paper with them and their weight, what colostrum, the IgG level of the colostrum, and that paper is sent out to Wisconsin with them. And also on that paper is the IgG level, and I track that also. And I also track not really who had the DOA, but what shift has the DOAs. And then I'll do a training, so like maybe every 2 months or every 3 months, I'll have a training meeting with each of the employees.
So my follow-up question is, when you find a failing in IgG, the fact that you've got the superior colostrum pasteurization system and the superior standardization, what do you find to create a failing in IgG levels, if you ever find one?
So the level I find is 5.5, well actually 5.5 is the level, anything below 5.5 is below the level. I really don't ever see anything below, because we IgG test every colostrum, and heifer calves are always fed the highest colostrum. We never feed anything below 25 in the IgG level.
It's kind of an interesting question, because we just went through this. We had one employee, like in December and January, one employee out of the 3 was consistently lower on his IgGs. And so you're like, it doesn't make any sense. He's using the same colostrum, using the same thing. So you start going over protocols, and is he doing something different or doing something wrong? And we have video cameras in all our maternity pens, and where the calves are and where they feed them, so you go back. And so I started looking at some of the videos, and what we do with our colostrum is they get 4 liters in that first half hour, and then we feed them 2 liters 6 to 12 hours later. Well, come to find out is that on the second feeding, he wasn't feeding, like if he had a calf born, say like 7 o'clock in the morning, he'd feed it the first feeding, but then he would always, well, you know, if my shift ends, he was letting the next guy feed his calves the second time, you might say, when he could have fed them before he left. So we had to kind of fix that hole in the system, because he was kind of doing it different than the other guys. So we made sure that the second feeding got in him a little quicker, and yeah, then within a few weeks his levels come up. So sometimes you got to go back and reevaluate your protocols, or make sure everybody understands them the same. It was kind of like, I had left the window. I said between 6 and 12 hours to feed the second feeding. And he was like, well, if I can go home before that 12 hours is up, I'm going to go home. Instead of, well, as soon as 6 hours is up, I should feed it. So now we say, you know, if you're here and you're on your shift and that calf is 6 hours old, you need to feed it unless you've got like 3 cows calving and you don't have time, then you can leave it for maybe the next shift. But we try to get them off at the second feeding quicker. So.
Your second feeding, you know, at 6 hours later, do they suckle that, or does that have to be also tubed?
We tube it all. We do. When we implemented this, well, when Andy came out with the different size bags, that's when we implemented the second feeding, and we tried to encourage the guys, let's try to nipple feed them the second feeding. But I don't have a lot of patience with calves, just to be honest myself. So yeah, it kind of, if you tell them to just tube feed it, you know it gets done. If you would say, let's try to nipple feed them, and then if they don't suck, let's tube feed it. Yeah, then it's more wasted. There again, it's kind of more of a wasted. And then you gotta make sure the nipple is clean, and so yeah, we do tube feed both feeds.
Elena, do you do 2 feedings?
Yeah, so we do something a little bit different. We tube feed within the first hour. We tube feed a gallon, and then 12 hours later, we'll also tube feed another gallon of colostrum.
And how quick do they get transported? Like, was it every day they're picking up, you said?
No, they pick up heifer calves once a week.
Oh, once a week.
Yep, and then my bull calves are sold off farm. So my bull calves will be there maybe 3 days to a week whenever I have a bull buyer.
Excellent question so far. Anybody else? Yeah.
So when we talk about the second colostrum feeding, did you find that essential to take you to the next level, or how did you determine that second colostrum feeding was important?
That was always the protocol once I got hired on the farm. I found that it boosts up the IgG level, because it's helping the calf with the the IgG levels. And on my farm, what I've seen, after the second colostrum feeding, they won't eat. We wait 24 hours to feed them because they're gonna be so full they won't eat.
Yeah, I was gonna pull it up here on my phone, but we did raise our IgG levels when we went to the second feeding. We did find just a slight bump. We actually have like 4 categories. We have an excellent, a good, a fair, and then a poor. And so now we just rarely ever have a calf that is poor, which I think is below 5.2. I think 5.2 to 5.5 we call fair. 5.5 to 5.8 good, and above 5.8 excellent. And so I know in the last month we were running 80% in the excellent category. So
I have a question.
Of course.
So Eric, you did talk about the visualization for like your DOAs, right? So what other visual, because that's a part of of being lean, is making things visualized. And I envision, like from my perspective as a manufacturer, we're concerned about safety, right? So it's how many days without any incident of humans, right? But do you guys do, like Eric, you talked a little about that, but are there other things that you do visually to try and encourage employees to recognize where they are maybe missing out on some opportunities, or just keeping things very visual, period?
yeah, as far as the visual, one thing that's helped us with having the cameras in the maternity area, we went through a process several years ago where we were running too high of a DOA rate and trying to figure out what we would do. So every time we had a DOA rate, we would go back to the camera, we would look at when the cow was moved in the maternity pen, and you could, see if the maternity guy, did he check that cow, or how often did he go back and check that cow? You could see if she was progressing. So then we would review with I would go through the video first myself and see if I could find any holes. And then if I found something, then I would bring the employee in the office and show him on the camera. And, I can remember times where like you'd have a cow where she'd be getting up and down. She'd lay down and push, and then she'd get up and walk around. She'd lay down and push and get up and walk around. Well, I know that's abnormal. There's something is wrong there. So you would show the employee that if you see this, if they're up and down, you need to sleeve that cow, and maybe the calf is backwards, maybe one of the legs is not coming or something. So I guess that's a visual. When they see that, then the next time they're like, oh yeah, I remember that from the last time.
I kind of do the same thing, just a little bit different. So I have my guys walking from maternity pens every 20 to 30 minutes. There's always somebody walking. So if they see, say there's a sick cow in the pen, I'll be like, you need to tell me. So I'm pretty sure that's a visual too. And then also when we put the cows into the calving pens, you wait like 30 minutes, oh, there's no feet. Or you see a nose, or you see a tail, or you see something else. I'll tell them, you need to check the cow, or you need to get somebody more experienced to help you, check that cow.
So, unless anybody has more questions, we're probably gonna have to wrap this up. Before we do, I want to point out one thing that kind of dovetails right into what you guys just talked about. So as a recap, when we're talking about lean and we're talking about maternity, but you can do this anywhere, is as you're doing this whole cycle, right? What's the current status? Experiment, try something new, reevaluate it, and determine if there needs to be a new direction. The hardest thing to do when you're do we need to do a new direction is between here and deciding this. And it's really hard. You guys had some really good questions, like how do you value whether or not the disposable tube feeder in this instance that we're talking about made a difference? Well, you have this graph chart. That graph chart that you guys all saw, that is a visual. So maybe it's, Eric could, in his instance could pose, hey, look, see how we were down and you mentioned you had some that were in the poor and now you don't have any in the poor? That would be a great visual because it is hard for anybody to identify whether or not we made an improvement. So when you make improvements, having pictures or visuals that we talk about visuals aren't just for, you know, hey look, this is how we do things, right? Or, you know, that was a good example about, hey look, Eric is saying, I got this animal skiing up and down, I know it's not normal, the employee doesn't know that, let me recap with them. That's another visual, but we maybe need to have statistics as visual, like, okay guys, we did a good thing, so from what we did before to what we do now, you guys don't maybe see that on your end, because I'm the one who gets the numbers. Publish those numbers for your team. Show them that what they're doing and the change that they had to make, whether they made it, which is to pat them on the back and give them the recognition, or somebody else did, that what they did and the effort they went through and that hassle of human life that we just don't like, we're creatures of habit like cows are. We don't like change. Giving that visualization to them helps support as a team what you guys are all trying to accomplish. So, you know, remember that. They need those visualizations as well. You may see the numbers, you may see the milk check, you may see the lower bills, they don't see any of that. So find a way to help them know and recognize that that cycle they're doing is actually worth the effort that they're putting into it. So with that, let's please give a round of applause to Eric and to Elena. Thank you very much. And feel free to stay after and ask any questions if you have any more.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, guys.